The shrill ring of the phone pierced the quiet of our kitchen, making me jump. I wiped my hands on my apron and answered, expecting to hear Bennett's voice. Instead, my mother-in-law's saccharine tone oozed through the receiver. "Miranda, darling," Claire cooed, "I'm hosting a little family gathering next weekend. I'd love for you to sing for us." My stomach clenched. In the 15 years I'd been married to Bennett, Claire had never once asked me to perform. "Sing?" I echoed, my voice barely above a whisper. "Oh, yes," she continued, her words dripping with false enthusiasm. "Everyone's always going on about your voice. I thought it was high time we all heard it." I gripped the phone tighter, my knuckles turning white. "That's unexpected," I managed. Claire's laugh tinkled like breaking glass. "Don't be modest, dear. It'll be lovely. Sophie can accompany you on the piano. I've been giving her lessons, you know." My free hand clenched into a fist. Of course, I knew. Claire had been monopolizing my daughter's weekends for months now, all under the guise of quality time with Grandma. "I'll have to check with Bennett," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, I've already spoken to him. He thinks it's a wonderful idea." Of course he did. Bennett never could see through his mother's machinations. "Well then," I said, forcing a smile into my voice, "I guess I'll start practicing." "Wonderful," Claire chirped. "I can't wait to hear what you come up with. Ta-ta!" The line went dead, and I slumped against the counter, my mind reeling. What was Claire up to? "Mom?" Sophie's voice startled me. I turned to see my 12-year-old daughter standing in the doorway, her eyes wide with concern. "Are you okay?" I plastered on a smile. "Of course, sweetie. That was just Grandma Claire. She wants me to sing at her party next weekend." Sophie's face lit up. "Really? That's great. Maybe I can play for you." My heart sank. "Actually, honey, Grandma suggested that already." "Oh," Sophie's enthusiasm dimmed slightly. "Well, we can practice together, right?" Before I could answer, the front door opened, and Bennett's voice called out, "I'm home." He strode into the kitchen, his tie already loosened, and gave me a quick peck on the cheek. "Hey, hon, did Mom call you about the party?" I nodded, trying to keep my expression neutral. "She did. It was quite a surprise." Bennett grinned, oblivious to my discomfort. "Isn't it great? Mom's always talking about how talented you are. It'll be nice for everyone to hear you sing." I forced a smile. "Right. Nice." Sophie tugged on her father's sleeve. "Dad, can I go to Grandma's tomorrow to practice? She said she'd teach me a new piece." Bennett ruffled her hair. "Sure thing, kiddo. Your grandma loves spending time with you." I bit my tongue, holding back the words I longed to say. How Claire was driving a wedge between me and my daughter. How she constantly undermined me with backhanded compliments and subtle jabs. Instead, I said, "Actually, Sophie, I thought maybe we could practice together this weekend. It's been a while since we've had some mother-daughter time." Sophie's face fell. "But Grandma's expecting me. She said she has a surprise for me." Bennett chuckled. "Come on, Miranda. Let her go. You two can practice during the week." I felt my resolve crumbling under their combined gazes. "Fine," I said, my voice tight. "Have fun at Grandma's, Sophie." As Sophie bounced out of the kitchen, chattering excitedly about her plans, I turned back to the sink, blinking back tears of frustration. Bennett came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "This is going to be great, honey. Mom's so proud of you." I leaned back against him, wishing I could make him understand. But as always, when it came to Claire, Bennett was blind to her manipulations. As I stood there in my husband's embrace, I couldn't shake the feeling that Claire's invitation was more than just a chance for me to sing. It was a challenge, and for once I was determined not to back down. The weekend arrived with a sense of dread. As I watched Sophie pack her overnight bag for Claire's, my heart ached. She hummed a tune I didn't recognize, probably something her grandmother had taught her. "Sophie, honey," I said, trying to keep my voice light, "maybe next weekend we could do something together? Just us girls?" She barely glanced up. "Maybe, if I'm not busy with Grandma." The words stung like a slap. I opened my mouth to respond, but Bennett appeared in the doorway. "Ready to go, kiddo?" he asked, car keys jingling in his hand. Sophie bounced up, all smiles. "Yep, bye, Mom." As they left, I sank onto Sophie's bed, fighting back tears. When had I become an afterthought in my own daughter's life? The house felt empty without Sophie's laughter. I tried to distract myself by practicing for Claire's party, but every song felt hollow. By Sunday evening, I was a bundle of nerves. When Bennett's car pulled into the driveway, I rushed to the door. Sophie burst in, chattering excitedly. "Mom, Grandma taught me a new song for the party. Want to hear?" Before I could answer, she was at the piano, her small fingers dancing across the keys. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, far beyond what I thought Sophie capable of playing. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." I managed, my throat tight. Bennett beamed with pride. "Isn't it amazing? Mom's really brought out Sophie's talent." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As Sophie continued to play, I retreated to the kitchen, busying myself with dinner preparations. Bennett followed me. "Hey, you okay?" I took a deep breath. "Bennett, don't you think Claire's been monopolizing Sophie lately?" He frowned. "What do you mean? She's just being a good grandmother. But every weekend, and now this party." I trailed off, unsure how to express my fears without sounding paranoid. Bennett's expression softened. "Miranda, Mom's just trying to help. You know how busy you've been with work. She's giving Sophie something special." I bit back a retort. How could I explain that what Claire was giving Sophie was a wedge between us? The week crawled by, each day bringing us closer to Claire's party. I tried to connect with Sophie, but she was always rushing off to practice with her grandmother. By Friday, I felt like a stranger in my own home. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear. As we drove to Claire's, my stomach churned with anxiety. Bennett reached over and squeezed my hand. "You'll be great," he said, misreading my tension. Claire's house was already bustling when we arrived. She greeted us at the door, all smiles and air kisses. "Miranda, darling," she cooed, "I can't wait to hear you sing. I do hope you've prepared something appropriate." I forced a smile. "Of course, Claire. I wouldn't want to disappoint." As we moved into the living room, I overheard Claire whispering to another guest. Such a shame. All that potential wasted on silly pop songs. My cheeks burned. I looked for Sophie, hoping for a friendly face, but she was already at the piano, surrounded by admiring relatives. Claire clapped her hands, calling for attention. "Before we begin, I have a special treat. Sophie has prepared a piece to play for us. Sophie, darling?" My daughter nodded, her face serious as she began to play. The room fell silent, enraptured by the music. I watched, a mix of pride and pain swirling in my chest. This was my daughter, yet I felt no connection to her talent. As Sophie finished, the room erupted in applause. Claire swept forward, enveloping Sophie in a hug. "Wasn't she marvelous?" Claire gushed. "Such talent, it must skip a generation." The room tittered with laughter. I stood frozen, the implied insult hanging in the air. Bennett, oblivious as always, joined in the applause. In that moment, watching Claire bask in my daughter's reflected glory, something inside me snapped. This wasn't just about a party or a song. This was war, and I was done playing nice. The days following Claire's party were a blur of tension and barely concealed anger. I tried to talk to Bennett about Claire's behavior, but he brushed off my concerns, chalking it up to family dynamics. It was clear I was on my own in this battle. One afternoon, as I was folding laundry in Sophie's room, I stumbled upon a crumpled piece of paper tucked under her bed. Curiosity got the better of me, and I smoothed it out. My heart sank as I read the childish scrawl, "Things Grandma Claire says about Mom." 1. Mom doesn't understand real music. 2. Mom wastes her talent on silly songs. 3. Mom is jealous of my piano skills. 4. Mom doesn't support my dreams like Grandma does. The list went on, each point a dagger to my heart. I sank onto Sophie's bed, the paper trembling in my hands. How long had Claire been poisoning my daughter against me? Just then, Sophie burst into the room. Her eyes widened when she saw what I was holding. "Mom, that's private," she cried, snatching the paper from my hands. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sophie, honey, we need to talk about this. These things Grandma's been saying." "They're true," Sophie interrupted, her face flushing. "Grandma says you're just jealous because I'm better at music than you ever were." The words hit me like a physical blow. I struggled to find a response, but Sophie was already storming out of the room, slamming the door behind her. I sat there, stunned, as the full weight of Claire's manipulation settled over me. She hadn't just been trying to win Sophie's affection. She'd been actively turning my daughter against me. That evening, as Bennett and I were cleaning up after dinner, I decided to make one last attempt to open his eyes. "Bennett," I began cautiously, "I found something in Sophie's room today. A list of things your mother's been saying about me." He frowned, pausing in drying a plate. What kind of things? I recounted some of the items on the list, watching his face carefully. To my dismay, I saw more confusion than concern. Are you sure you're not misinterpreting? He asked. Mom can be blunt sometimes, but I'm sure she doesn't mean any harm. I slammed the dish I was washing into the sink, soapy water splashing everywhere. For God's sake, Bennett, when are you going to see what's really going on? Before he could respond, Sophie appeared in the doorway, her face pale. Is this about my recital? I turned confused. What recital? Sophie's eyes darted between Bennett and me. The one at school next week? Grandma's been helping me prepare a special song. My heart sank. How had I not known about this? Sophie, why didn't you tell me? She shrugged, not meeting my eyes. Grandma said it would be a nice surprise for you. I felt the last thread of my composure snap. A surprise? Your grandmother has no right to. Miranda, Bennett cut in, his voice sharp. That's enough. You're upsetting Sophie. I looked at my daughter, saw the tears welling in her eyes, and felt my anger deflate, replaced by a bone-deep weariness. I'm sorry, sweetie. Of course, I'd love to hear you sing at your recital. Sophie nodded, then fled back to her room. Bennett gave me a disappointed look before following her. Left alone in the kitchen, I leaned against the counter, my mind racing. The recital. It was the perfect opportunity to show Sophie and Bennett that I wasn't the villain Claire had painted me to be. To prove that I could support my daughter's talents without Claire's interference. As I formulated a plan, a small, determined smile crept onto my face. Claire thought she had won, but the final act was yet to come, and this time I would be the one writing the score. The day of Sophie's recital arrived, and my nerves were frayed to breaking point. I'd spent the week trying to connect with Sophie, but she remained distant, always rushing off to practice with Claire. Bennett, sensing the tension, had become a silent mediator, his eyes darting between us with growing concern. As we drove to the school, Sophie clutched a folder to her chest, her knuckles white. Grandma's meeting us there, she announced, her voice tinged with excitement. My stomach clenched, but I forced a smile. That's nice, sweetie. I can't wait to hear you sing. The auditorium was packed with proud parents and fidgeting siblings. We found seats near the front, saving one for Claire. I scanned the crowd, my heart racing when I spotted her sweeping down the aisle, resplendent in a designer suit. There's my star! Claire exclaimed, embracing Sophie. She barely acknowledged me with a curt nod. As the lights dimmed, I leaned over to Sophie. Break a leg, honey, I love you. She smiled weakly, then hurried backstage. Claire settled into her seat, a smug expression on her face. The recital began, a parade of nervous children stumbling through simple melodies. Then Sophie stepped onto the stage. My breath caught in my throat. She looked so grown up, so poised. The piano intro began, and Sophie started to sing. Her voice, clear and sweet, filled the auditorium. I felt tears prick my eyes, overwhelmed with pride. But as the song progressed, my pride turned to confusion, then dismay. The lyrics were unfamiliar, the melody complex. This wasn't a children's song, it was an aria from a famous opera. I glanced at Claire, who was beaming triumphantly. She caught my eye and whispered, I thought Sophie deserved a real challenge, not some silly pop tune. Anger flared in my chest. This was what Claire had been secretly preparing? A piece far beyond Sophie's years, designed to showcase Claire's teaching rather than Sophie's natural talent? As Sophie hit a particularly difficult passage, her voice wavered. I saw panic flash in her eyes. Without thinking, I stood up, my own voice rising to support hers. Our voices blended, steadying Sophie and carrying her through to the end. The audience erupted in applause. Sophie's face lit up as she spotted me, relief and joy shining in her eyes. For a moment it was just us, mother and daughter, connected by music. Then Claire was on her feet, rushing to the stage. Oh, darling, you were marvelous, she gushed, pulling Sophie into a hug. I knew you could do it. I watched, my moment of connection shattered, as Claire basked in the audience's admiration. Bennett touched my arm. That was amazing, Miranda. I had no idea you could sing like that. Before I could respond, Sophie broke free from Claire's embrace and ran to me. Mom, did you hear? We sang together. I hugged her tightly. We did, sweetheart. You were wonderful. Claire's voice cut through our moment. Sophie, dear, come take a photo with Grandma. We must commemorate your triumph. Sophie hesitated, looking between Claire and me. I saw the conflict in her eyes, the pull of Claire's influence warring with our rekindled connection. In that moment, I made a decision. I wouldn't let Claire steal this from me, from us. Actually, I said, my voice steady, I think Sophie and I should take a picture together first. After all, we did just perform an impromptu duet. Claire's face darkened. Now, Miranda, don't be selfish. Sophie's performance was the result of my teaching, and— No, Sophie interrupted, her voice small but firm. I want a picture with Mom first. The shock on Claire's face mirrored my own surprise. As Sophie pulled me towards the stage, I caught sight of Bennett's expression, a mix of confusion and dawning realization. Standing there with Sophie, surrounded by applauding parents and beaming children, I felt a shift. The battle lines had been drawn, and for the first time I wasn't standing alone. As the camera flashed, capturing our smiling faces, I knew the war with Claire was far from over. But now I had hope, and I had my daughter back. The aftermath of Sophie's recital brought a fragile peace to our household. Sophie, buoyed by our duet, began seeking me out for impromptu singing sessions. It was like a balm to my wounded heart, but I knew Claire wouldn't give up so easily. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, Bennett approached me with a hesitant smile. Miranda, I've been thinking, maybe we should have a family dinner this weekend. Invite Mom over, try to clear the air. I nearly dropped the knife I was holding. Clear the air? Bennett, your mother has been. I know, he interrupted, surprising me. I've been noticing things. But she's still family. We need to address this head on. Reluctantly, I agreed. Perhaps this was my chance to confront Claire with Bennett as a witness. The night of the dinner arrived, tension thick in the air. Claire swept in, all smiles and false warmth. Miranda, darling, how lovely to see you taking an interest in homemaking again. I bit my tongue, forcing a smile. As we sat down to eat, Claire dominated the conversation, regaling us with tales of her musical accomplishments. I caught Sophie's eye across the table, seeing a flicker of doubt in her expression. You know, Claire said, helping herself to more wine, I've been thinking. Sophie's talent is truly exceptional. She needs proper nurturing. I've spoken to a friend who runs an elite music academy. They're willing to offer Sophie a scholarship, but it would mean her living with me during the week. The room fell silent. I felt as if all the air had been sucked out of my lungs. Absolutely not, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Claire's eyes narrowed. Now, Miranda, don't be selfish. This is about Sophie's future. Selfish, I explained, years of pent-up frustration pouring out. You're the one who's been manipulating my daughter, turning her against me. Mom, Grandma, please don't, pleaded, her eyes wide with distress. Bennett stood up, his face pale. Maybe we should all calm down and— No, Bennett. I cut him off. It's time we address this. Your mother has been systematically undermining me, poisoning Sophie against me, and you've been too blind to see it. Claire's facade cracked, her voice turning cold. How dare you? I've only ever wanted what's best for Sophie. Unlike you, who's content to let her talent wither while you chase your own faded dreams. The words hit me like a physical blow. I saw Sophie's face crumple, tears welling in her eyes. In that moment, I knew I had to do something drastic. I couldn't let this continue. Enough, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. Claire, I challenge you. At the next family gathering, we'll both perform. Let everyone see who's really the talented one in this family. Claire's eyebrows shot up, a smirk playing at her lips. My dear, are you sure you want to embarrass yourself like that? Mom, what are you doing? Sophie whispered, her eyes wide. I met Claire's gaze, unflinching. I'm dead serious, unless you're afraid to accept. A tense silence fell over the room. Bennett looked between us, bewildered. Sophie clutched her napkin, her knuckles white. Finally, Claire nodded, a predatory gleam in her eye. Very well, Miranda, if that's what it takes to settle this nonsense once and for all, I accept your challenge. As Claire swept out of the house, leaving a wake of stunned silence, the full weight of what I'd done crashed over me. I just challenged a former piano major to a musical duel in front of our entire family. But as I looked at Sophie's face, a mix of worry and something that looked like hope, I knew I couldn't back down. This was my chance to reclaim my daughter's respect, to show her the strength of her mother's love. I excused myself and retreated to our bedroom, my mind racing. I had 2 weeks to prepare for the performance of my life. As I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands shaking, I realized this wasn't just about music anymore. This was about saving my family. With a deep breath, I reached for my old songbook. It was time to remind everyone, including myself, of who Miranda really was. The day of the family gathering arrived, my stomach a knot of nerves. I'd spent every spare moment practicing, determined to show Claire and everyone else what I was truly capable of. As we drove to the venue, a rented hall for the occasion, Sophie's excited chatter filled the car. "Mom, are you nervous? Grandma's been practicing all week, too." I forced a smile. "A little, sweetie, but I'm mostly excited to sing for everyone." Bennett squeezed my hand. "You'll be great, Miranda. Both of you will." The hall was already bustling when we arrived. I spotted Claire holding court near the piano, surrounded by adoring relatives. She caught my eye and smirked, raising her glass in a mock toast. As the evening progressed, I found myself growing increasingly anxious. Claire had yet to perform, and I worried she might back out of our agreement. Just as I was about to confront her, Sophie tugged at my sleeve. "Mom, can I play something on the piano?" Before I could answer, Claire swooped in. "Of course, darling. Why don't you play that lovely piece we've been working on?" I bit my tongue, not wanting to cause a scene. Sophie settled at the piano, her small fingers poised over the keys. As she began to play, I noticed something odd. The melody was familiar, but not from our recent practice sessions. It was an old lullaby I used to sing to Sophie when she was a baby. Tears pricked my eyes as Sophie's clear voice joined the piano. This wasn't one of Claire's complex pieces. It was a simple, heartfelt song that Sophie and I had shared countless times. As the last notes faded, the room erupted in applause. Sophie beamed, her eyes seeking mine for approval. I nodded, too choked up to speak. Claire, looking flustered, quickly took center stage. "Well, wasn't that sweet? Now I believe Miranda and I had a little musical duel planned. Shall we?" The room fell silent, all eyes on us. Claire seated herself at the piano, launching into a technically impressive but emotionally sterile rendition of a classical piece. I watched the audience's reactions, noting the polite smiles and stifled yawns. As Claire finished, she turned to me with a triumphant grin. "Top that, dear." I took a deep breath and stepped forward. But before I could begin, Sophie piped up. "Grandma, why don't you sing something?" "Yeah, you always say singing is the true test of musical talent." A hush fell over the room. Claire's face paled slightly. "Oh, I don't know, darling. My voice isn't what it used to be." "Please, Grandma." Sophie pressed, her eyes wide and innocent. "You're always telling me how important it is to challenge yourself." Trapped by her own words, Claire reluctantly stood. Well, I suppose I could try a little something. What followed was painful to watch. Claire's voice, thin and wavering, struggled through a simple folk song. She hit several wrong notes, her face growing redder with each mistake. The audience shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. As Claire trailed off, visibly shaken, I felt a mix of triumph and pity. This was my moment. I could humiliate her as she had done to me so many times. But looking at Sophie's confused face, I knew that wasn't the right path. Instead, I stepped forward and began to sing the lullaby Sophie had played earlier. My voice, strong and clear, filled the room. I saw recognition dawn in the eyes of my family members. This was the real me, the singer they had known before Claire's influence had diminished me. As I sang, I locked eyes with Claire. Her expression was a mix of shock, anger, and something else. Was it respect? The room was silent except for my voice, everyone transfixed. Just as I reached the final verse, Sophie joined in, her sweet voice blending perfectly with mine. We finished the song together, our voices intertwining in perfect harmony. The applause was deafening. Sophie threw her arms around me, laughing and crying at the same time. I hugged her tightly, feeling years of tension melt away. But as I looked up, I saw Claire storming out of the room, her face a mask of fury. Bennett followed her, his expression torn. I realized then that while I might have won this battle, the war was far from over, and the next confrontation would determine the future of our family once and for all. The aftermath of the family gathering was like the calm before a storm. Sophie clung to me, her eyes shining with newfound admiration, while Bennett oscillated between pride in my performance and concern for his mother. Claire had vanished, leaving a wake of whispers and speculation. 3 days later, as I was helping Sophie with her homework, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Claire, her face a mask of cold determination. "We need to talk," she said, brushing past me into the living room. Bennett appeared from his study, his face etched with worry. "Mom, what's going on?" Claire's eyes darted between us. "I've made a decision. I'm taking Sophie to live with me." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "What?" I gasped, my voice barely audible. "It's clear that Sophie's talent is being wasted here," Claire continued, her voice dripping with disdain. "I've already spoken to my lawyer. I'm filing for custody." Bennett stepped forward, his face pale. "Mom, you can't be serious. Sophie belongs with us." "Does she?" Claire's eyes narrowed. With a father too blind to see what's best for her, and a mother who's more concerned with her own faded dreams than her daughter's future? Something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up frustration and anger burst forth like a dam breaking. "How dare you!" I shouted, my hands shaking. "You've been poisoning Sophie against me for years, manipulating her, trying to steal her away. And for what? To relive your own glory days through her." Claire recoiled, shock flashing across her face before it hardened again. "I've only ever wanted what's best for Sophie. Unlike you, Miranda, I can see her true potential." "Stop it!" Sophie's voice cut through the tension. We all turned to see her standing in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. Just stop fighting." I moved to comfort her, but she backed away. "Sophie, honey." "No," she cried. "I'm tired of all the secrets and the mean words. Grandma, why did you tell me Mom doesn't love me as much as you do?" The room fell silent. Bennett's head snapped towards his mother, disbelief etched on his face. "Mom, is that true?" Claire's composure cracked. I never meant." But Sophie wasn't finished. "And Mom, why didn't you tell me Grandma was lying? Why did you let me believe her?" I felt the weight of my own mistakes crushing me. "Oh, Sophie, I'm so sorry. I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" Bennett's voice was low, dangerous. "Miranda, how long has this been going on?" I took a deep breath, knowing this was the moment of truth. "For years, Bennett, your mother has been undermining me, turning Sophie against me. I tried to tell you, but you never wanted to see it." Bennett's face crumpled. I didn't want to believe it." "Mom, how could you?" Claire's facade finally shattered. "I was trying to protect Sophie. Miranda's not good enough for this family. She never was." The room exploded into chaos. Bennett and Claire shouting, Sophie sobbing, and me standing in the middle of it all, feeling like my world was imploding. Suddenly, Sophie bolted for the door. Without thinking, I ran after her, my heart pounding. I caught up to her at the end of our driveway, pulling her into my arms. "Sophie, please," I begged, my voice breaking. "I love you so much. I'm so sorry for everything." She clung to me, her small body shaking with sobs. "I don't want to go with Grandma. I want to stay with you and Dad." I held her tighter, looking back at our house where Bennett and Claire's silhouettes were visible through the window, still arguing. In that moment, I knew we'd reached a turning point. Everything I'd fought for, everything I loved, hung in the balance. As I stood there, my daughter in my arms and my family in turmoil, I realized that the next few moments would determine the course of our lives forever. It was time to fight not just for myself, but for the future of our family, and this time I wouldn't back down. I stood in our driveway, holding Sophie close, when Bennett emerged from the house. His face was a storm of emotions. Anger, confusion, and a dawning realization that seemed to age him before my eyes. "Miranda," he called, his voice hoarse. "Sophie, please come back inside. We need to talk about this as a family." I hesitated, looking down at Sophie. Her tear-stained face was resolute. "Only if Grandma leaves," she said, her voice small but firm. Bennett nodded, turning back to the house. We followed, my heart pounding with each step. As we entered the living room, Claire stood by the window, her posture rigid with defiance. "Claire," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice, "I think it's time for you to go." She whirled around, her eyes flashing. "You can't dismiss me from my son's house." "It's our house, Mom," Bennett interjected, his tone weary but determined. "And right now, we need to be alone with our daughter." Claire's face crumpled, the mask of superiority finally shattering. "Bennett, surely you can't believe these ridiculous accusations? Everything I've done has been for this family." "No, Grandma," Sophie spoke up, her voice stronger now. "It was for you. You wanted me to be like you, not like me or Mom." A heavy silence fell over the room. Claire looked from face to face, searching for an ally and finding none. Finally, her shoulders sagged in defeat. I never meant to cause such pain, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. I only wanted the best for Sophie. The best for Sophie is to have a mother who loves her unconditionally, I said, my voice gentle but firm. Not one who tries to mold her into someone else's image. Bennett stepped forward, placing a hand on his mother's shoulder. Mom, I think it's best if you give us some space. We'll call you when we're ready to talk again. Claire nodded, her usual poise completely shattered. As she gathered her things and left, the tension in the room seemed to leave with her. We sat together on the couch, Sophie nestled between Bennett and me. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Bennett broke the silence. I owe you both an apology, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I should have seen what was happening. I should have protected you. I reached across Sophie to take his hand. We all made mistakes, Bennett. What matters now is how we move forward. Sophie looked up at us, her eyes wide. Are we going to be okay? I hugged her close, feeling Bennett's arm encircle us both. Yes, sweetheart. We're going to be more than okay. We're going to be happy. Over the next few weeks, we began the process of healing. Bennett and I had long, honest conversations about the years of tension and misunderstandings. We decided to start family therapy, determined to build a stronger foundation for our relationships. Sophie blossomed without the weight of Claire's expectations. We encouraged her to explore her own interests, whether that was music, art, or anything else that sparked her passion. As for me, I rediscovered my love for singing, not for accolades or approval, but for the pure joy it brought me. I started giving small performances at local cafes, with Bennett and Sophie cheering me on from the front row. Claire remained on the periphery of our lives. We didn't cut her off entirely, but we set clear boundaries. Over time, she began to see the damage her actions had caused. It was a slow process, but gradually she started to change. One year after that fateful confrontation, we hosted a small gathering at our home. As I stood in our backyard watching Bennett flip burgers on the grill and Sophie play with her cousins, I felt a profound sense of peace. Claire approached me, her demeanor hesitant. Miranda, she said softly, I want you to know, I'm truly sorry for everything. You're a wonderful mother and a talented woman. I was wrong to ever make you feel otherwise. I looked at her, seeing not the formidable adversary of the past year, but a woman who had lost her way and was trying to find it again. Thank you, Claire, I replied. That means a lot. As we stood there, an impromptu sing-along broke out among the kids. Without thinking, I joined in, my voice blending with theirs. To my surprise, Claire began to sing too. Our eyes met, and for the first time, I saw genuine warmth in her smile. In that moment, surrounded by the family we had fought so hard to protect and heal, I knew that we had not just survived the storm. We had emerged stronger, more loving, and more authentic than ever before. And that, I realized, was the sweetest victory of all. I smoothed my wedding dress for the 100th time, unable to stop smiling as I gazed at my reflection. After years of disappointment, I'd finally found the one. Carter was everything I'd ever dreamed of, handsome, successful, and utterly devoted to me. In just a few hours, we'd be husband and wife. A knock at the door startled me from my reverie. Come in, I called. My best friend Leanne poked her head in, her eyes wide. Addison, you look stunning, she breathed. Then her expression shifted, growing serious. Can we talk for a second? My stomach clenched. What's wrong? Leanne hesitated, then blurted, It's about Carter. I overheard something. Before she could continue, my father burst into the room. There's my beautiful girl, he exclaimed, enveloping me in a bear hug. Are you ready to knock 'em dead? I just smiled, pushing aside the unease Leanne's words had stirred. Ready as I'll ever be, Dad. The ceremony passed in a blur of flowers, music, and Carter's adoring gaze. As we shared our first dance as husband and wife, I felt like I was floating on air. Nothing could spoil this perfect day. Hours later, flushed and giddy from champagne, I scanned the reception for Carter. He'd mentioned needing to catch up with an old friend, but that had been ages ago. I spotted Leanne by the bar and made my way over. Have you seen Carter? I asked. Leanne's smile faltered. Not for a while. Addison, about what I was trying to tell you earlier. There you are. My new mother-in-law's shrill voice cut through the crowd. Eleanor appeared at my elbow, her perfectly coiffed hair not budging as she air-kissed my cheek. Darling, you simply must come meet the Andersons. They're dying to congratulate you. I shot an apologetic look at Leanne as Eleanor steered me away. For the next hour, I was paraded around like a prized show pony, shaking hands and making small talk. All the while, a nagging worry gnawed at me. Where was Carter? Finally extricating myself from Eleanor's clutches, I retreated to a quiet corner and pulled out my phone. No messages from Carter. I dialed his number, but it went straight to voicemail. Everything okay, Pumpkin? My father's concerned voice made me jump. I plastered on a smile. Of course, Dad. Just trying to track down my wayward husband. Dad's brow furrowed. That's odd. I could have sworn I saw him leaving with that redhead. What's her name? His ex-girlfriend? The bottom dropped out of my stomach. Vanessa? Dad nodded slowly. That's the one. But I'm sure there's a perfectly innocent explanation. I barely heard him, my mind racing. Vanessa, Carter's old friend. The ex he'd sworn was ancient history. Addison? Leanne appeared at my side, her face etched with worry. You won't believe what I found out. On the night of your wedding... I held up a hand, silencing her. Let me guess, it's about Carter and Vanessa? Leanne's eyes widened. How did you know? Lucky guess, I said bitterly. Excuse me. I pushed past them both, ignoring their calls as I fled the reception hall. Outside, the cool night air did nothing to calm the storm of emotions raging inside me. Hurt, betrayal, and fury warred for dominance as I paced the empty parking lot. My phone buzzed. A text from Carter. Sorry, got caught up. Be back soon. Love you. I stared at the screen, tears blurring my vision. How could he do this? On our wedding day of all days. A car pulled into the lot, headlights sweeping across me. I squinted, recognizing Carter's sleek sports car. As it drew closer, I saw two figures inside, Carter behind the wheel and a familiar redhead in the passenger seat. My hands clenched into fists. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Instead, it was quickly becoming my worst nightmare. I stood frozen as Carter's car pulled into the parking lot. My wedding dress suddenly felt like a straitjacket, constricting my breathing. As Carter stepped out, his eyes widened in surprise. Addison, what are you doing out here? I ignored him, my gaze locked on Vanessa as she emerged from the passenger side. Having fun catching up with your old friend? I spat. Carter's face paled. It's not what it looks like, I swear. Really? Because it looks like you abandoned your wife on our wedding day to run off with your ex-girlfriend. Vanessa at least had the decency to look ashamed. I'm so sorry, Addison. I didn't realize. Save it, I snapped. Turning to Carter, I hissed, how could you do this to me? He reached for me, but I recoiled. Baby, please, let me explain. Explain what? How you lied to me? How you made a mockery of our vows? Carter's expression hardened. You're overreacting. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. I laughed bitterly. You disappeared for hours on our wedding night. I told you, we were just talking. In your car? For hours? I shook my head in disbelief. Do you think I'm stupid? Carter's eyes flashed with anger. Maybe if you weren't so damn insecure, I wouldn't need to seek companionship elsewhere. His words hit me like a slap. Before I could respond, Leanne appeared at my side. Everything okay out here? She asked, eyeing Carter suspiciously. It's fine, Carter snapped. This is between me and my wife. Leanne bristled. Your wife who you abandoned at her own reception? Carter rounded on her. Stay out of this. You've always tried to come between us. Don't you dare blame Leanne, I snarled. She's been more loyal to me tonight than you have. Our raised voices had drawn attention. My father emerged from the reception hall, his face thunderous. What the hell is going on here? Carter's demeanor instantly changed. Bruce, just a little misunderstanding. Everything's fine. Dad's eyes narrowed. Doesn't look fine to me. He turned to me. Addison, sweetheart, what happened? I opened my mouth, but no words came out. How could I explain this humiliation? Carter jumped in. It's nothing, really. Addison's just upset because I stepped out for a bit. But I'm back now and we can get back to celebrating. Dad's gaze shifted to Vanessa, who was trying to slink away unnoticed. And who might you be? Before she could answer, Eleanor's shrill voice cut through the night air. There you all are. What on earth are you doing out here? She bustled over, taking in the scene with narrowed eyes. Carter, darling, your guests are wondering where you've gone. And Addison, really sulking in the parking lot? How unbecoming. I felt my cheeks burn with anger and shame. I'm not sulking, I managed. I'm trying to understand why my husband abandoned me on our wedding night. Eleanor waved a dismissive hand. Don't be so dramatic, dear. I'm sure Carter had a perfectly good reason. Oh, he had a reason, all right, I muttered, glaring at Vanessa. Eleanor followed my gaze, her eyes widening slightly before her mask of civility slipped back into place. Well, whatever's happened, I'm sure we can sort it out privately. No need to air our dirty laundry in public. Dirty laundry? Dad growled. If that boy has hurt my daughter. Now, Bruce, Eleanor cut in smoothly, let's not jump to conclusions. I'm sure this is all just a big misunderstanding. I looked from Eleanor's forced smile to Carter's pleading eyes to my father's concerned face. The weight of expectations and appearances pressed down on me, threatening to suffocate me. In that moment, I made a decision. You know what? You're right, Eleanor. This isn't the time or place. I straightened my spine and fixed Carter with an icy stare. But don't think for a second this is over. With that, I turned on my heel and strode back towards the reception, leaving a stunned silence in my wake. As I pushed through the doors, Leanne hurrying after me, I realized with crystal clarity that my picture-perfect marriage was nothing but a beautiful lie. The weeks following our disastrous wedding night were a blur of tense silences and half-hearted apologies. Carter swore up and down that nothing had happened with Vanessa, but the seed of doubt had been firmly planted in my mind. One particularly gloomy afternoon, I found myself alone in our apartment, restlessly pacing. On impulse, I grabbed Carter's laptop. He'd always been protective of it, and a nagging voice in my head whispered that there might be a reason why. My hands shook as I opened it, surprised to find it unlocked. As I scrolled through his emails, my heart sank. There, in black and white, was proof of Carter's betrayal, not just with Vanessa, but with multiple women. The emails dated back months, even before our engagement. I was still staring at the screen, numb with shock, when the door opened. Carter walked in, his easy smile faltering as he took in my expression and the open laptop. "Addison, what are you doing?" he asked, his voice tight. I looked up at him, tears streaming down my face. "How could you?" Carter's face hardened. "You had no right to go through my personal emails." "Personal emails?" I scoffed. "You mean your collection of love letters to half the women in the city?" He strode over, slamming the laptop shut. "It's not what it looks like." "Really?" "Because it looks like you've been cheating on me since before we even got engaged." Carter ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "You don't understand. My job, sometimes I need to entertain clients. It doesn't mean anything." I stared at him in disbelief. "Entertain clients? Is that what you call sleeping with other women?" "Don't be so dramatic," he snapped. "This is why I didn't tell you. I knew you'd overreact." His dismissive tone ignited a fury in me. "Overreact? You've been lying to me our entire relationship." Before he could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Eleanor. "Dinner at our house tonight, 7 p.m. sharp. We need to discuss your behavior at the wedding." I laughed bitterly. "Your mother wants to discuss my behavior. Isn't that rich?" Carter's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" I showed him the text. "Apparently, I'm the one causing problems in this family." He sighed. "Look, let's just go to dinner and smooth things over. We can discuss this later." Part of me wanted to refuse, to scream and rage and throw his lies back in his face. But another part, the part that still clung to the hope of salvaging something from this wreckage, nodded in agreement. Hours later, we sat around Eleanor's immaculately set dining table. The tension was palpable as we picked at our food in silence. Finally, Eleanor spoke. "Addison, dear, I think we need to address your little outburst at the wedding." I gripped my fork tightly. "My outburst?" She nodded, her smile not reaching her eyes. "It was quite unseemly, causing a scene like that. In front of all our guests, no less." I glanced at Carter, but he studiously avoided my gaze. "I'm sorry if my reaction to finding my husband with another woman on our wedding night was inconvenient for you," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Eleanor's smile tightened. Now, I'm sure it was all just a misunderstanding. Carter has explained everything." "Has he?" I turned to Carter. "Did you explain about all the other women too, or just Vanessa?" The color drained from Carter's face. Eleanor's eyes darted between us. "What other women?" she asked sharply. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking. "Would you like to see the emails, Eleanor? I'd be happy to share." Carter lunged for my phone. "Addison, don't." But it was too late. I'd already pulled up the damning messages, sliding the phone across the table to Eleanor. As she read, her carefully composed mask cracked, revealing a mix of shock and fury. She looked up at Carter, her voice ice-cold. "Explain, now." As Carter stammered out excuses, I stood up, suddenly feeling suffocated. "I think I've lost my appetite," I said, heading for the door. Behind me, I heard Eleanor's voice rising in anger, Carter's pleading responses. But I didn't look back. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a glimmer of something like hope. The truth was out, and there was no going back now. I paced my living room, my mind racing with possibilities. The truth about Carter's infidelity was out, but I knew that wasn't enough. He'd manipulated me for too long, and Eleanor would undoubtedly try to sweep everything under the rug to preserve their precious family image. No, I needed to do more. I needed to take control. My phone buzzed, a text from Leanne. "How are you holding up? Want me to come over?" I hesitated, then typed back, "Actually, can you meet me at Café Noir in an hour? I have an idea." An hour later, I sat across from Leanne, my hands wrapped around a steaming latte. "I'm going to expose Carter," I said without preamble. "Publicly." Leanne's eyes widened. "Addison, are you sure? That's a big step." I nodded firmly. "I'm done being the victim in this story. It's time to write my own ending." We spent the next 2 hours plotting. Lean, bless her, threw herself into the plan with gusto. By the time we left the cafe, we had a strategy that made my heart race with equal parts excitement and terror. The next day, I called my father. "Dad, I need your help," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "Anything. Pumpkin, what's going on?" I took a deep breath. "I'm going to confront Carter and Eleanor, publicly, at the charity gala next week." There was a long pause. "Addison, are you sure that's wise?" "It's necessary, Dad. I can't let them keep controlling the narrative. Will you help me?" Another pause, then a sigh. "Of course I will. What do you need?" We talked for an hour, refining the plan. By the end, I felt a surge of gratitude for my father's unwavering support. The week leading up to the gala was a blur of preparations. Leanne and I worked tirelessly, gathering evidence and coordinating with trusted allies. My father used his connections to ensure key people would be present. The night of the gala arrived. I stood in front of my mirror, smoothing down my crimson dress. My hands shook slightly as I fastened my necklace. This was it. No turning back now. Carter was waiting by the door, looking handsome in his tuxedo. For a moment, my resolve wavered. How had we come to this? "Ready to go, darling?" he asked, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. I nodded, unable to trust my voice. The ballroom was a glittering sea of wealth and influence. Eleanor held court near the center, her laugh tinkling artificially as she greeted guests. I felt her eyes on me as Carter and I made our rounds, but I studiously avoided her gaze. An hour into the event, I caught Leanne's eye across the room. She gave me a subtle nod. It was time. I made my way to the small stage where the band was playing. With a deep breath, I stepped up to the microphone. "Good evening, everyone," I said, my voice ringing out clear and strong. "I hope you're all enjoying the gala. I have a special announcement to make." The room quieted, all eyes turning to me. I saw Carter's confused expression, Eleanor's narrowing eyes. "Many of you know me as Carter Williams's wife," I continued. "What you may not know is that our marriage has been built on a foundation of lies and betrayal." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Carter started towards the stage, but my father smoothly intercepted him. "I've recently discovered evidence of my husband's multiple affairs, dating back to before our wedding," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I believe in honesty and transparency, which is why I'm sharing this with you all tonight." Eleanor pushed through the crowd, her face a mask of fury. "Addison, stop this nonsense at once," she hissed. I ignored her, pressing on. I refused to be silenced or shamed for someone else's actions. And I refused to let this family's obsession with appearances overshadow the truth. With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone and pressed a button. Suddenly, the large screen behind me lit up, displaying a montage of Carter's incriminating emails and text messages. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. I saw Carter's face pale, Eleanor's eyes widen in horror. In that moment, standing before the truth laid bare, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Whatever happened next, I knew I had taken back control of my story. And I was just getting started. The room erupted into chaos as the evidence of Carter's infidelity flashed across the screen. I stood firm on the stage, my heart pounding but my resolve unshakable. Carter's face had turned ashen, his eyes darting around the room like a cornered animal. Eleanor, however, was a force of nature. She stormed towards the stage, her carefully cultivated mask of civility crumbling. "How dare you?" she hissed, grabbing my arm. "You ungrateful little—" "Let go of me," I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my limbs. "You don't get to control this narrative anymore, Eleanor." She released me as if burned, turning to address the murmuring crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, please, this is clearly a misunderstanding. My daughter-in-law is unwell. We'll sort this out privately." I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. "Unwell? Is that what you call it when someone refuses to be manipulated and lied to?" Carter finally found his voice. "Addison, please, let's talk about this at home." "There's nothing left to talk about," I replied, my gaze sweeping the room. "I wanted you all to know the truth. About Carter, about this family, about the lies we've all been living with." Suddenly, a new voice cut through the tension. "I can vouch for what Addison is saying." I turned, shocked to see Vanessa pushing her way through the crowd. Carter's face, if possible, grew even paler. "I was part of Carter's deception," Vanessa continued, her voice shaking. "But I can't keep silent anymore. Everything Addison is saying is true." The room exploded into fresh chaos. I saw my father move to stand protectively near me, while Leanne hurried to my side. But my focus was on Carter and Eleanor, their carefully constructed world crumbling around them. Eleanor's eyes blazed with fury. "You little tramp," she spat at Vanessa. "How much did they pay you to say that?" Vanessa flinched but stood her ground. "Nothing. I'm here because it's the right thing to do." Carter finally seemed to snap out of his stupor. He strode towards me, his face a mask of desperation. "Addison, please, we can work this out. I'll do anything. Just don't do this." For a moment, I wavered. The look in his eyes, so familiar and once so dear to me, tugged at my heart. But then I remembered all the lies, all the betrayals. "It's too late, Carter," I said softly. "You had your chances. This is me taking control of my life back." Eleanor, seeing she was losing ground, changed tactics. Her voice took on a sickeningly sweet tone. "Addison, darling, think about what you're doing. This scandal could ruin us all. Is that what you want? To destroy this family?" I felt a surge of anger. "Family? You call this a family? A web of lies and manipulation, more concerned with appearances than actual love or support?" I turned to address the crowd again. "I'm done being silent. I'm done playing the perfect wife in this farce of a marriage, and I'm done letting fear control my actions." With shaking hands, I removed my wedding ring. The diamond glittered under the harsh lights as I held it up. This ring symbolized promises that were broken long ago. I'm returning it, along with all the lies and pain it represents. I placed the ring on the podium, the soft clink seeming to echo in the stunned silence of the room. "Addison," Carter pleaded one last time, "don't do this. I love you." I met his gaze steadily. "No, Carter, you love the idea of me, the perfect wife who would never question you, never challenge you. But that's not who I am anymore." With that, I stepped down from the stage, my head held high. As I walked through the parting crowd, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with legal battles and emotional turmoil, I was sure. But for the first time in months, I felt truly free. I had made my choice, and there was no going back. The days following the gala passed in a blur of legal meetings and emotional upheaval. I threw myself into my work at the boutique, grateful for the distraction. But even as I helped customers find the perfect outfit, my mind raced with thoughts of divorce papers and asset division. One particularly exhausting afternoon, I returned home to find Carter waiting on my doorstep. My heart clenched at the sight of him, a mix of anger and residual affection warring within me. "Addison," he said, his voice hoarse. "Please, can we talk?" I hesitated, then nodded curtly. 5 minutes. Inside, Carter paced the living room while I stood with my arms crossed, a physical barrier between us. "I've been in therapy," he blurted out. "I'm trying to change, to understand why I did what I did. I know I hurt you, but I love you. Can't we try to work this out?" For a moment I wavered. The man before me looked so different from the confident, manipulative Carter I'd come to know. But then I remembered all the lies, all the pain. "It's too late, Carter. I said softly. I can't trust you anymore. His face crumpled. What about everything we built together? Our dreams, our future? Those dreams died the moment you chose to betray me, I replied, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. Carter's demeanor suddenly shifted, his eyes hardening. You'll regret this, Addison. You think you can just walk away? I'll make sure you have nothing when this is over. A chill ran down my spine at his threat, but I stood my ground. Get out, I said, pointing to the door. After he left, I called Leanne in tears. She arrived within minutes, armed with ice cream and a fierce determination to protect me. We need to be prepared, she said as we sat on my couch. Carter's not going to make this easy. The next morning, I woke to a flurry of notifications on my phone. My heart sank as I scrolled through messages from friends and coworkers, all asking if I was okay. With trembling fingers, I opened my social media accounts. There, splashed across my feed, were private photos and messages taken out of context, painting me as unstable and vindictive. Carter had launched a smear campaign. I felt the walls closing in, my carefully rebuilt world threatening to crumble once more. But then I remembered the strength I'd found within myself. I wouldn't let Carter destroy me again. I called my father and Leanne, explaining the situation through tears of fury. Within hours, we had assembled a team of lawyers and PR specialists to counter Carter's attacks. Days blurred together as we fought back. For every lie Carter spread, we responded with truth. It was exhausting, but I refused to back down. The turning point came unexpectedly. I was at the boutique, trying to lose myself in work, when Vanessa walked in. I'm so sorry, she said, her eyes brimming with tears. I can't stand by and watch Carter destroy you like this. I have proof, emails, texts, everything, showing he's behind the smear campaign. I'll testify if you need me to. I stared at her, shocked by this unexpected ally. Why are you doing this? Vanessa smiled sadly. Because it's the right thing to do, and because I was once in your shoes. I wish someone had stood up for me then. Armed with Vanessa's evidence, we took the offensive. Carter's carefully constructed lies began to unravel, and public opinion swiftly turned in my favor. But just as victory seemed within reach, I received a call that made my blood run cold. It was my lawyer, his voice grave. Addison, Carter's filed for full control of your assets. He's claiming you're mentally unstable and unfit to manage your finances. There's an emergency hearing scheduled for tomorrow. I felt the room spin around me. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built, was suddenly at risk. Carter was making his final desperate play to regain control. As I hung up the phone, I realized this was it, the moment that would define everything. I could crumble under the pressure, or I could stand tall and fight with everything I had. Taking a deep breath, I made my choice. Carter had underestimated me for the last time. Tomorrow, I would show him, and the world, exactly what I was made of. The final battle was here, and I was ready. The morning of the emergency hearing arrived with a sense of foreboding. I stood before the mirror, smoothing down my most professional suit, trying to project an image of stability and competence. My hands shook slightly as I fastened my necklace, a gift from my father, a reminder of his unwavering support. Leanne arrived to drive me to the courthouse, her presence a comforting anchor. You've got this, Addison, she said, squeezing my hand. We're all behind you. The courthouse loomed before us, its stone facade imposing and cold. As we climbed the steps, I spotted Carter and Eleanor arriving, both impeccably dressed and wearing matching expressions of smug confidence. My stomach churned, but I lifted my chin and strode past them without a glance. Inside the courtroom, my lawyer Sarah greeted us with a tight smile. Remember, she whispered, stay calm, no matter what. We have the truth on our side. As the judge entered and the proceedings began, I felt as though I was watching from outside my body. Carter's lawyer painted a picture of me as unstable, vindictive, and incapable of managing my own affairs. With each word, I felt my carefully reconstructed world threatening to crumble. When it was our turn, Sarah presented the evidence of Carter's infidelity and manipulation. I took the stand, my voice surprisingly steady as I recounted the betrayals and lies. But as I spoke, I saw the judge's expression remain impassive, and a seed of doubt took root in my heart. During a recess, I overheard Eleanor speaking to Carter in hushed, urgent tones. We need to end this now, she hissed. Use the nuclear option. My blood ran cold. What else could they possibly have up their sleeves? As we reconvened, Carter's lawyer called a surprise witness, Dr. Evelyn Matthews, a respected psychiatrist. My heart sank as I recognized her. I'd seen her briefly for anxiety after discovering Carter's infidelity. Dr. Matthews took the stand, her face a mask of professional concern. In my professional opinion, she stated, Addison exhibits signs of borderline personality disorder, exacerbated by recent stress. Her erratic behavior and accusations stem from this condition, making her unsuitable to manage her own affairs at this time. The courtroom spun around me. How could she say this? We'd only had 2 sessions, and I'd never been diagnosed with any such condition. I turned to Sarah in panic, but her face was grim. As Dr. Matthews continued her damning testimony, I felt the walls closing in. Everything I'd fought for, every step forward I'd taken, seemed to be slipping away. Carter and Eleanor wore twin expressions of triumph, and I realized with sickening clarity that they'd planned this all along. In that moment, staring at the faces of those who sought to destroy me, something inside me snapped. A calm, cold fury washed over me, clearing away the panic and doubt. I leaned over to Sarah, whispering urgently. Her eyes widened, then narrowed in determination. She nodded, then stood to address the judge. Your Honor, we request a brief recess to confer with our client. The judge agreed, and I was ushered into a small conference room. Sarah, Leanne, and my father crowded around me, their faces etched with concern. Addison, what are you thinking? Sarah asked. I took a deep breath, my mind racing with possibilities. We need to turn the tables one last time, I said. I have an idea, but it's risky. If it works, we expose Carter and Eleanor for who they really are. If it fails... I trailed off, the implications hanging heavy in the air. My father placed a hand on my shoulder. Whatever you decide, we're with you, he said firmly. Leanne nodded in agreement, all the way. I looked at each of them, feeling a surge of gratitude and determination. This was it, the final battle. Everything I'd been through, every lie uncovered and truth revealed, had led to this moment. Okay, I said, my voice steady and resolved. Here's what we're going to do. As we prepared to re-enter the courtroom, I felt a strange sense of calm. Win or lose, I would face this challenge on my own terms. Carter and Eleanor had underestimated me for the last time. The judge called the court back to order, and I straightened my spine, ready to fight for my future, my dignity, and my truth. As I stood in the courtroom, facing down Carter, Eleanor, and Dr. Matthews, a strange calm washed over me. I nodded to Sarah, who approached the bench. Your Honor, we'd like to call a surprise witness of our own, she announced. Carter's lawyer jumped to his feet, objecting, but the judge, intrigued, allowed it. My heart pounded as the courtroom doors opened. Dr. Evelyn Matthews' identical twin sister, Dr. Mady Caroline Matthews, walked in. The courtroom erupted in shocked murmurs. I watched as the color drained from Carter and Eleanor's faces. Caroline took the stand, her voice steady. I'm here to expose a grave injustice. My sister, Evelyn, was coerced into providing false testimony about Addison's mental state. I have proof of the bribery and threats made by Carter Williams and his mother, Eleanor. She produced a series of emails and recorded conversations that laid bare Carter and Eleanor's desperation and manipulation. The judge's expression hardened as he reviewed the evidence. Carter leapt to his feet, shouting denials, but his protests rang hollow in the face of such damning proof. Eleanor sat frozen, her carefully crafted facade crumbling before my eyes. As the truth unfolded, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. The judge called for order, his voice cutting through the chaos. In light of this new evidence, I'm dismissing the petition for control of Mrs. Williams' assets. Furthermore, I'm recommending a full investigation into Mr. Williams and Mrs. Eleanor Williams for perjury and witness tampering. Relief flooded through me, but it was tempered by a bittersweet realization. This victory marked the end of a chapter in my life, a painful, transformative journey that had changed me forever. Outside the courthouse, surrounded by my supporters, I faced a sea of reporters. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward. Today, justice was served, I began, my voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. But this isn't just about me. It's about standing up to manipulation and abuse, about reclaiming your power and your truth. As I spoke, I saw faces in the crowd, women nodding, some with tears in their eyes. I realized that my story resonated beyond just me. To anyone out there who's been made to doubt themselves, who's been gaslit or manipulated, your truth matters, your voice matters, and you are stronger than you know. In the days that followed, my life transformed. The boutique where I worked offered me a partnership, recognizing my resilience and business acumen. Leanne and I started a support group for women recovering from toxic relationships, turning our pain into purpose. One crisp autumn morning, I stood in my new apartment, surrounded by boxes yet to be unpacked. A gentle knock at the door revealed my father, holding a small gift-wrapped package. "I'm so proud of you, Pumpkin," he said, enveloping me in a warm hug. "Your mother would be too." I unwrapped the gift with trembling hands to find a delicate silver locket. Inside was a photo of my mother, her smile radiant and strong. "She always said you had her spirit," Dad said softly. "Now the whole world knows it too." Tears pricked my eyes as I fastened the locket around my neck. It felt like a talisman, a reminder of the strength that had always been within me. Later that evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, I reflected on the tumultuous journey that had brought me here. The pain, the betrayal, the moments of despair, they were all part of my story now. But they didn't define me. What defined me was how I'd risen above it all, how I'd found my voice, my strength, my truth. As the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in brilliant hues, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The future stretched out before me, full of possibilities I'd never dared to imagine before. I was Addison Williams, survivor, fighter, and now, finally, the author of my own story. And this was just the beginning.